Archon Vitality, one of the mods that you can get from cheaper in Chaos Garrison. At first it doesn't seem to be too crazy. 440% health and status effects from abilities that deal heat damage will be applied twice is a nice bonus. It's probably pretty good for like Lavos, Ember, Chroma, Neja, that kind of stuff, right? Well, yes, but there is a twist. This mod works for exalted weapons as well. Also, on a side note, does anyone else think that the wording on this mod is terrible? Because to me it implies that any status effect inflicted by an ability that does heat damage will be doubled, and not any heat proc applied by an ability will be doubled. But I digress. The cool thing about the Archon Vitality mod is that it makes damage over time builds for exalted weapons a lot more viable. Especially on chromatic builds where all you need to do really is just switch your emissive color to be red. This is something I would definitely recommend you play around with, especially if you prefer to use health and armor as your primary means of defense rather than something like rolling guard or even quick thinking. Because you're not really losing much, you just need to squeeze a little bit more capacity onto your frame and you need to make sure that you have heat damage on your exalted weapon. That's a pretty small price to pay for double heat procs. Especially on something like Dexpixia where you're already going for a damage over time build since it does a lot of slash damage, so you can double down and get heat procs in there as well. It even works on Messa's regulators, though the base status chance on these isn't super high, I think it's around 10%, so it's gonna need a lot of investment to proc a lot of heat. But when it comes to stuff like Chromatic Blade or Baruch's Desert Winds, that kind of stuff, it's actually worth checking out. Now, I'm not saying it's the best build in the world, it's probably not gonna rival a big boy glyph build or something like that, but it's definitely worth playing around with because you never know what you might find. I still to this day remember when the first slash-based Tigris builds were coming out with Viral, and everyone was laughing at them, was just like, why don't you use a good build instead? And in a few weeks, everyone was running it because it was one of the strongest single target setups we had at that time. The best thing about Archon Vitality, I think, is that you're not losing much by running it over regular Vitality because it provides the same amount of health, and while yes, it drains for more capacity, it doesn't make that big of a difference. So you might as well use it if you have some heat damage on your exalted weapon or you're using a heat-based frame, of course. The only time I would actually think twice about using Archon Vitality is if I'm already using Umbral Vitality, right? Because not only are you gonna lose some health, depending on how many Umbral mods you're running, you might also lose armor and strength. So in that scenario, it's gonna depend on the build itself, but I think most of the builds that run heat damage on their exalted weapons would benefit more from having double heat procs through Archon Vitality rather than the extra defense and bit more strength by keeping the Umbral mod set intact. But anyway, that's pretty much it for the video. I just wanted to let you guys know that Archon Vitality does in fact work with exalted weapons, and it might be something that's worth playing around with. It is so far my favorite Archon mod because it just seems to be more useful and impactful than the other ones. But then again, I don't have all of them just yet. And as always guys, I thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye bye.